Hey everybody, welcome to the BWC Online Bible Study. Today we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 24, and we're going to be talking about a wife for Isaac. Now, we've been all the way through the marriage and the life of Abraham and Sarah, and in the last chapter, Sarah passed away. And now we're going to see how Abraham is preparing Isaac for the next steps in his life. As parents, that is our job in every area that we're working and functioning in. It's our job to bring up the next generation. You know, we won't always be here to do all of the things. And so it is so important that we share our faith, that we bring up the people who are coming behind us and prepare them to step into the places that God is calling them to be. And pray for your children. That's one of the things that I took away from this. Pray as you are watching them step off into life now. We don't live in the same day and time that Abraham and Sarah lived in, so the way that they did things is going to be different than the way that we do it now. But the principles still hold true. You should be praying about who your child is going to marry one day. You should be praying for that person that God has set apart for them. And you should be praying for your child to be the person that they're called to be, so that they can be the husband or the wife that God has called them to be, so that they can step into that next season in their life. And start early. Pray for them always. Pray for your child and pray for the person that they're going to marry one day. And pray for your grandchildren. I know that may seem odd if you just have little babies running around, but it gets here before you realize it. And you want God's very best for your generations to come. And so we're going to start off with Abraham talking to his servant, and we're going to get into that. I'm going to read to you some. It says, Abraham was now a very old man, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. If you think back and remember all the things that Abraham had been through, all the times and ways that the Lord was building Abraham's faith, the trials and the tests that he faced, and how in his younger years, he didn't always walk into that the way that he was supposed to. But then he kind of hit this climax in his life of this trust that he had in God. And it says, one day Abraham said to his oldest servant, the man in charge of his household, take an oath, and by putting your hand under my thigh, swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not allow my son to marry one of these local Canaanite women. Go instead to my homeland, to my relatives, and find a wife there for my son Isaac. And so again, it's not like it is now, where you go out and meet someone and you date them and you decide if they're the person that you're supposed to be with. You pray about it, all of that. Things were different back then. And Abraham was concerned with the character of the person that Isaac was going to marry, because around them, they were surrounded with people who worshiped idols and who were against God and not for him. And so Abraham wanted that same love for God to be throughout his generations. And so he wanted him to go to find this wife for Isaac. And it says, but the servant asked, what if I can't find a young woman who's willing to travel so far from home? Should I take Isaac there to live among your relatives in the land that you came from? No, Abraham responded. Be careful never to take my son there, for the Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and my native land, solemnly promised to give this land to my descendants. He will send an angel ahead of you, and he will see to it that you find a wife there for my son. If she is unwilling to come back with you, then you are free from this oath of mine. But under no circumstances are you to take my son there. So really, Abraham is saying no backtracking. God called me out of that place. He called me to this place, and he has given me this land for my descendants. And he is trusting the Lord in that. And I like how patient Abraham is with his servant. He is giving him instructions. He is telling him that the Lord is going to be with him, that the angel of the Lord is going to go ahead of him and prepare the way. And he still gives his servant that peace of mind, saying that look, if you go there and for some reason she says no to you, now he knows that this is not going to happen because he's supposed to be the father of many nations. He trusts the Lord for his instructions. He trusts the Lord for his next step. But he's being very patient with his servant, who is concerned that, under normal circumstances, who's going to say yes to this? Whose answer is going to be yes to this reply? I'm going to leave my family, go with this strange man that I don't know to a place that I've never been, to marry a person that I've never met. And so like that's just a ridiculous kind of request. How could you ask somebody to do that? But either way, like, he is going to do what his master has asked him to do. He's going to do what he's been sent to do. But Abraham's being very patient with him in his worry about things not going the way he wanted. So the servant took the oath by putting his hand under the thigh of his master Abraham, and he swore to follow Abraham's instructions. So he's putting somebody in charge that he knows he can trust. How important is that? One of the things that my mom taught me as a kid is that she should be able to hand me her credit card or her checkbook and completely trust me with it. To know that whether she's there or she's not there, that I was going to guard her things and protect them and be a person of integrity. And I was thinking about that the other day, when you have someone coming alongside you in ministry or wherever they are, if you don't feel like you can trust them to hold your credit card or you can trust them to hold your checkbook, how can you trust them to step into that position? Here is the head servant in Abraham's household, and he is trusting him to follow his directions, to do the things that he's asking him to do. And so it says, then he loaded 10 camels with all kinds of expensive gifts from his master, and then he traveled to the distant Aram Naharaim, and then he went to the town where his brother Nahor had settled. He made the camels kneel beside the well outside the town. It was evening when the women were coming out to draw water. "O Lord, the God of my master Abraham," he prayed, "please give me success today and show unfailing love to my master Abraham. See, I am standing beside the spring where the young women of the town are coming out to draw the water. This is my request. I will ask one of them, please give me a drink from your jug. And if she says, yes, have a drink, and I will water your camels too. Let her be the one you have selected as Isaac's wife. This is how I will know that you have shown unfailing love to my master." So the example that Abraham has set before his servant, the servant knows what to do in this moment. He's coming there beside the water and he's praying. And he's seeking God for direction. He's seeking God for wisdom. He's seeking God for help. This is such a huge thing that he's been entrusted with, and it's important that he gets it right. And so instead of just trying to handle that on his own, he begins to seek the Lord. And it says, before he had finished praying. So the Lord already knew the desires of his heart. The Lord had sent the angels out to prepare the way. And before he even finished praying, he saw a young woman named Rebecca coming out with her water jug on her shoulder. And she was the daughter of Bethuel, who was the son of Abraham's brother Nahor, and his wife Milcah. Rebecca was very beautiful and old enough to be married, but she was still a virgin. She went down to the spring and filled her water jug and came up again. Running over to her, the servant asked, "Please give me a little drink of water from your jug." "Yes, Lord," she answers. "Have a drink." She quickly lowered the jug from her shoulder and gave him a drink. And then when she had given him a drink, she said, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink." So she quickly ran and emptied her jug into the watering trough and then ran back to the well to draw water for all of his camels. This was 10 camels. This was not just one camel, or, you think you go run get some water for the puppy or the dog. The camels drink a lot of water. And so the hospitality that Rebecca shows here in running all the way back to the well and drawing enough water for 10 camels. And it doesn't just say 10 camels to just have a sip of water. It was 10 camels to drink enough water until they've had enough to drink. And it reminds me of the hospitality that Abraham showed to the Lord when they came to visit him at his house. Just this wonderful, welcoming, hardworking, just loving presence. And so this is what he sees in Rebecca here. Like, she is not only willing to share what she has worked for with him, but to show hospitality to a stranger, and even to care for the camels that he had brought with him, and all of that work. And no complaining, no, heaving sighs, rolling eyes, none of that. Just helping and blessing. And it says, yes, my Lord, she answered. Okay, she said, have a drink and I'll draw the water for the camels. And then the servant watched her in silence, wondering whether or not the Lord had given him success on his mission. And then at last, when the camels had finished drinking, he took out a gold ring for her nose and 2 large gold bracelets for her wrist. Whose daughter are you? He asked. Please tell me, would your father have any room to put us up for the night? I am the daughter of Bethuel, she replied. My grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. Yes, we have plenty of straw and feed for your camels, and we have room for guests. The man bowed low and worshipped the Lord. He realized that God had answered his prayer. Praise the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, he said. The Lord has shown unfailing love and faithfulness to my master, for he has led me straight to my father's relatives. The young woman ran home to tell her family everything that had happened, and now Rebecca had a brother named Laban who ran out to meet the man at the spring. And he had seen the nose rings and the bracelets on his sister's wrists and heard Rebecca tell what the man had said. So he rushed out to the spring where the man was still standing beside the camels. Laban said to him, Come and stay with us, you who are blessed of the Lord. Why would you be standing outside the town when I have room all ready for you and a place prepared for your camels? So the man went home with Laban, and Laban unloaded the camels and gave him the straw for the bedding, and then he fed them and provided water for the man and the camel drivers to wash their feet. And then food was served. But Abraham's servant said, I do not want to eat until I have told you why I have come. And so I'm going to pause there for just a second. When you are on mission for the Lord, like, always being that person of integrity and honesty is so important. He wanted to make sure that he was being above the board, that he was doing things the way that God had asked him to do. He was doing things the way his master Abraham had asked him to do. And we want to be that person of integrity. We want to be that person that can be trusted to do what we're asked to do, and that can walk into that with all honesty. And then here he is going to retell. I'm not going to read all through that because it is almost exactly word for word what we just read everything of. But he tells the family about what Abraham had asked him to do. He tells them about the trip there. He tells them about the prayer by the well. He tells them about Rebecca doing everything that he had asked the Lord to be able to see in a person, and how that was all fulfilled. And so he's like writing out the vision and making it plain so that they can understand. And And then we're going to see what their response is to this. It says, toward the end, it says, and then I bowed low and worshiped the Lord, and I praised the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, because he had led me straight to my master's niece to be his son's wife. So tell me, will you or won't you show unfailing love and faithfulness to my master? Please tell me yes or no, and then I will know what to do next. And then Laban and Bethuel replied, the Lord has obviously brought you here, so there's nothing we can say. Here is Rebekah. Take her and go. Yes, let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has directed. When Abraham's servants heard the answer, they bowed to the ground and they worshipped the Lord. And then they brought silver and gold jewelry and clothing and presented them to Rebekah. He also had expensive presents for her brothers and mother. And then they ate their meal, and the servants and the men stayed with them overnight. But early the next morning, Abraham's servant says, send me back to my master. But we want Rebekah to stay with us for at least 10 days, her brother and mother said, and then she can go. So I understand this. Like they're coming to this moment when it's time. It sounded great last night, but you had the night to think on it, and then here you are in the morning. And are you going to obey the Lord in this moment? And it's really hard to let your children go. Nowadays, I've had to let my older two go off to do the things that God's called them to do. And I'm at the point with my youngest son that it's time for him to go off to college and do the things that God's called him to do. And it's really hard because your family's going to change. You're going to miss this person that you have loved and raised, but it's time for them to step into God's call for their life. And then was so much different than it is now. Like now we still have these ways of staying connected. We have the phone, we have video calls, we can get in the car, hop in the car, drive to each other, hop in a plane, fly to each other. Back then when they let go, they might never see them again unless they dwelt together, unless they went together. And so when they're letting Rebekah go here, you can understand this hesitation that they have in their hearts. But this is what the servant said. But he said, don't delay me. The Lord has made my mission successful. Now send me back so I can return to my master. Well, they said, we'll call Rebekah and ask her what she thinks. So they called Rebekah and said, are you willing to go with the man? They asked her. So you see here that this wasn't just she's taken away from her home, all of this. Like she had a choice to make. Was she going to honor God? Was she going to listen to the call that had been placed on her life? Was she going to step into what God had for her? And she replied, yes, I will go. And they said goodbye to Rebekah and sent her on her way with Abraham's servant and his men. The woman who had been Rebekah's childhood nurse went along with her, and they gave her this blessing as she parted. Our sister, may you become the mother of many millions. May your descendants be strong and conquer the cities of their enemies. Then Rebekah and her servant girls mounted camels and followed the man. So Abraham's servant took Rebekah and went on his way. Meanwhile, Isaac, whose home was in the Negev, returned to Belaharoi. And one evening he was walking and meditating in the fields. He looked up and he saw the camels coming. When Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac, she quickly dismounted from her camel. Who is this man walking through the field to meet us? She asked the servant. He replied, it is my master. So Rebekah covered her face with a veil, and then the servant told Isaac everything that he had done. Isaac brought Rebekah into his mother Sarah's tent, and she became his wife. He loved her deeply. She was a special comfort to him after the death of his mother. So we see here that God had a plan for Isaac. He's always had a plan for Isaac. He had a plan for the birth of Isaac. He has good plans for his children. He has good plans for his people. And he loves us and he cares about us. And he goes to prepare a way for us when we're headed in the direction that he wants us to go. And so I just want to encourage you today as we wrap this up. Who you marry is important. Who your kids marry is important. Training up and bringing up the next generation behind you is important. Making sure they're headed in the right direction, preparing them for the next steps, so important. Trusting the Lord in the moments and being patient with other people whose faith might not be where your faith is right now, and praying for them, praying with them, and just having this patience that comes from the Lord. And again, like I said, praying for your kids, praying for the person that they're going to marry, praying for them to be the person that they should be in the marriage as well. So that's what I want to leave you guys with today. Genesis chapter 24, this preparation, this patience, this faith that we have in God, and then understanding that it's not about everything that we do properly, but knowing that the Lord goes ahead of us and prepares a way for us. So think on those things. Let them kind of dwell on your heart. Go back through maybe and read the chapter again, and see if the Lord speaks something to you as you read through. But like I said, you want to be that person that God has called you to be as well, to be faithful, and to just trust in the Lord. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today, Genesis chapter 24, and I'll catch you back again in Genesis chapter 25.